All right, in this video, we're going to learn how to solve one and two-step inequalities. Solving inequalities is the exact same as solving an equation. The only difference is that when you divide by or multiply by negative, you're going to have to reverse the inequality sign. So when I'm looking, the first thing you're going to do, just like we've done before, is distribute the parentheses if you have them, combine like terms, move the variable to the other side, and then you're going to move the constant to the other side. And this one says split, but split the coefficient. But if we're using the don't call me after midnight, so don't call me after midnight, remember the D stands for distribute, the C stands for combine like terms, M stands for move the variable, A stands for add or subtract, and M stands for multiply or divide. So you're still going to be using those same scenarios, but here is the most important piece that you've got to remember. When you multiply or divide by negative on this last step, on the multiply or divide step, you have to reverse the inequality. So basically when I say reverse, that means if it's less than, then you're going to turn it into greater than. If it's greater than, then you're going to turn it into less than. So you basically change the sign, you flip it, okay? So that only happens when you multiply or divide by the negative. So if you don't multiply or divide by negative, then you don't have to reverse it. All right, so when I'm looking at this first inequality right here, I'm solving for x. This is saying that x plus 10 is greater than, so we're going to say greater than or equal to, oh, I spelled that wrong. So greater than or equal to, because it's got the equal to slash at the bottom, 6. So what we're going to do here is we're going to solve for x. So in order to do that, we have x plus 10. So we're going to subtract 10 on both sides. And by doing that, I now have x is greater than or equal to 6 minus 10 is negative 4. So if I were to look at that on a number line, I have negative 4 over here. I'm going to have a solid circle because it's equal to, and then greater than is going to be to the right. And it would include any number. So I could plug in any number that's greater than or equal to negative 4 and it'd be true. All right, so for the next one, we're solving for x here. This one is also going to be greater than but not equal to. All right, so this one is 6 times x is greater than 48. So we're going to divide by 6, because remember, to undo multiplication, you do division. And x is greater than, and then 48 divided by 6 is going to be 8. So again, if you were on a number line, if I have 8, this would be an open circle because it's not equal to, and then greater than would be this way. Now, we have basically the identical problem right beside it. The only difference is this one has a negative and the other one didn't. Now, if you notice, we kept the inequality sign as it is. So this one is still going to be greater than. And we would solve it the exact same way. So if we're solving for x, I would need to divide by negative 6. Now, why is this different? This is different because remember we said when you're doing inequalities and you divide by a negative, you have to flip the sign. So what's going to happen here is instead of being greater than, it's now going to become less than. And it's going to be less than because we divided by that negative. So this is less than negative 8. So on a number line, this would be negative 8. We'd have an open circle, and we'd be shading this way. So remember, when you multiply or divide by negative, you're going to flip the sign. All right, so let's come back over here. Now, we had talked about earlier when we were doing equations that you could flip an inequality or flip an equation. You can do the same with an inequality, but your inequality has to face the same pieces when you flip them. So if I take this side right here and I flip it this side, what we have to make sure is that my inequality is facing the same way. So if I do x minus 1, that x that's opening up right here, so this is opening up to x minus 1, so it's got to open up to x minus 1 when we flip it. And this is going to be negative 6. And again, we would just solve here. We're solving for x, and we're going to add 1 because we're subtracting. And then this is going to be x is greater than negative 5. So any number greater than negative 5 will make this inequality true. All right, so again, if I want to flip this around, I can flip this and make this side and this side flip, but we've got to make sure that it opens up to this piece when we flip it. So if I do x divided by 3, it's going to open up to negative 5. So now this says x divided by 3 is greater than or equal to negative 5. So this is a greater than or equal to. So in this scenario, we have divided by 3, so we're going to undo that division by multiplying by 3. So x is greater than or equal to negative 15. So any number greater than or equal to negative 15 would make this statement true. All right, so again, if I want to flip this, that's fine. I just need to make sure that this flips and opens up to this piece. So this becomes x divided by negative 5 is going to open up and is now going to be greater than or equal to negative 2. All right, so we're going to solve for x. So remember, we're dividing by negative 5, so we're going to multiply by negative 5. Now, we are multiplying by a negative number. So since we're multiplying, we need to flip the sign. So remember, when you multiply or divide by a negative number, you got to flip that sign. So this, this is going to turn into less than or equal to, and negative 2 times negative 5 is going to be positive 10. So this was greater than or equal to. So because of that, multiplying by negative is now going to be less than or equal to. So if we were to look at this on a number line, x is 10. We're going to put a solid dot because it's equal to, and less than is going to be shaded to the left. All right, so now we have two-step equations. So if we look at these two-steps equations, this right here is saying that this is greater than, so we have greater than or equal to. So we're going to undo our adding and subtracting, then our multiplication and division. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 4, do that opposite sign. So that gives me 3x is greater than or equal to negative 14. All right, and I'm then going to divide by positive 3. Now 3 is positive, so we do not have to flip the sign here. So x is greater than or equal to negative 14 over 3, since it's not going to divide out evenly. All right, so this one is greater than, no equal to. All right, and we're solving for x here. So the first thing we're going to do is, since we have plus 8, we're going to do minus 8. So we have 5x is greater than negative 25. And we're going to divide by 5. Now, 5 is positive, so we do not need to flip the sign. So x is greater than negative 5. All right, so for this one, the first thing that I see here is that I have this negative in front. So that basically is telling me that I'm going to be working with a -1. All right, so I'm going to subtract 6. And this is saying less than, no equal to, just less than. So I have -1x is less than 2 minus 6 is going to be -4. Now, when we look at this, this is saying -1 times x. So we're going to have to divide by -1, which at that point, that is my indicator that I'm dividing by a negative. And if I'm going to divide by a negative, remember you got to flip the sign. So instead of less than, this is now going to become greater than, +4. All right, and for this one, if you want to rewrite it, that's perfectly fine. Just remember that when you rewrite it, you need to make sure that your inequality sign is going to be facing the correct side. So this inequality needs to be opening up to this side. So if I do x divided by -5 plus 8, I need to open that up to that same side. So it's going to be greater than or equal to -2. All right, so we're solving for x. So I'm going to subtract 8. So I have x divided by -5 is greater than or equal to -10. Now, I'm still solving for x here, but I do see that I have this negative that I'm going to multiply by. So when I multiply by that negative, that is going to be my indicator that I need to flip my sign. Remember, you only flip the sign if you multiply or divide by a negative. So instead of greater than, it's going to become less than +50. Now, the next ones are practice. If you want to pause the video right here and try these, and then you can start this back, and I'm going to go through them. All right, so for this one, this is going to be greater than or equal to. So I'm going to start by subtracting 3. So that's going to leave me 3x is greater than or equal to -15. And then I'm going to divide by 3. Now 3 is positive, so I do not have to flip the sign. So x is greater than or equal to -5. All right, so for this one, I have this one is just greater than. So I'm going to subtract 5. So I have 3x is greater than 9. And I'm going to divide by 3. Now, 3 is positive, so I do not need to flip the sign. So x is going to be greater than 3. All right, this one is less than. All right, and I'm going to start by adding 1 to both sides. So I have -4x is less than 2. Now, at this point, I can see that I'm going to wind up dividing by a negative, so I'm going to need to flip that sign. So if I flip that sign, this is going to turn into x is greater than, and I'm going to simplify this. So I can simplify this because 2 and 4 are both divisible by 2. So if I divide both of these by 2, it's going to simplify and become -1/2. And for this one, I'm going to rewrite this so that my x is on the left side. And again, just remember that when you're doing this, the inequality sign needs to open up to this piece. So this is going to be x over -2, or excuse me, -3 plus 2, and it's going to open up to be greater than or equal to -7. So I'm going to subtract 2. So x over -3 is greater than or equal to -9. However, I'm dividing by -3. So what's going to wind up happening is I'm going to multiply by negative 3. And since I'm multiplying by this negative, I'm going to need to flip my inequality sign. So x is less than or equal to, and we have negative 9 times negative 3 is going to be positive 27. So remember, when you multiply or divide by a negative number, you need to flip the sign.